Well, good evening, folks. Welcome back to the farm. I say good evening, but it's not that great. I got to manage a thing. I'm still hobbling around after the old tumble on the ski hill there. Yesterday, the wife tried to help me out, split the ewes and the rams apart and get the rams across the yard. Tried, I say, unsuccessfully. Anyways, when I got home, I was no more successful. We were no more successful working as a team. It just wasn't meant to be. It had too much grain earlier in the day and they just weren't motivated by a bucket. So the rams have been penned up in the round pen on the other side of the barn all day. The ewes have been out in the field behind the barn on this side. Now, when I was away at work, quite a ways away from home today, I got 3 back-to-back phone calls that I missed from the wife. And then a text message like, hey, you got to phone me right now. Like, this is kind of it's a big deal. It's an emergency, right? Well, it turns out in between her coming out and doing some chores and then running back in and then coming back out in a matter of 5 minutes, that big white dog had one of our lambs that we were raising for meat down and chewed up on the back of the neck with injuries not consistent with life, essentially. So she had to manage that. So she had, so that's what the emergency phone call was like. Well, how do we take the safety off of this thing so she can put it out of its misery? Now, speaking of putting it out of its misery, I'm of a frame of mind that me and the dog go for a walk and I come home. But my wife is urging that I practice some restraint here this evening. So I'm going to bring the ewes in. I'm going to bring them into the barn here. I'm going to get my bucket of grain. And I'm going to try to get the rams across to the paddock in behind the shop. And then I'm going to get the snowmobile fired up there and go take the one that the dog chewed up and take it down to the very, very south end of the farm so we don't have no predators come in. Now, this whole thing, a couple of other regular viewers had chimed in. They'd had similar experiences. And so I don't think this thing is necessarily, I think it's a predictable surprise. We knew we had behavioral problems with the dog. I was already kind of leaning towards let's go for a walk. I don't think I'll be convinced otherwise, but we'll see how this thing pans out here because you start, there's not really a lot of profit when you're kind of a small holding, right? You're trying to eke out a living off of 1/4 handful of sheep, some chickens. You're homesteading. You're not really making money. You're maybe just losing money slower. And then when the dog starts eating what you got, I don't have a lot of time for that, to be honest. Anyways, let's get some ewes in here, penned up so they're not a distraction to the rams. Everybody's in here now. I would have loved to have filmed that piece, but it's crazy windy outside there today. We're at the tail end of, I don't know, we had, I would say at the beginning we had a Chinook, and then it was genuinely nice for a couple of days. Like, it wasn't windy, it was warm. Woke up this morning, there was about 2 to 3 inches of fresh, wet, sticky snow, which I'm actually appreciative because that's going to bind to that ice and make it a lot easier to get around the yard. More so than, the old icing sugar snow that we've sometimes gotten. And looks like the wind's picked up. And, that's not a Chinook. That's basically weather pattern shifting. We're going to get a polar vortex here in a couple of days and be back to minus 30. Well, I think minus 25 during the day, minus 30 at night. So that's going to be as pleasant as it sounds, I'm sure. Come on there, fellas. Looks like they're off. Hopefully they're going the right direction here. Alright, well, I'm happy to report the rams went across the yard. They took a couple of detours, but without much ado, not even a single swear word, just a couple of the bucket, and they're back behind the shop where they're supposed to be. So that's a win. Now, sometimes you think more help would be more help. We've even had that, like when it's the day to move the sheep out of the pasture and up into the yard, or vice versa, out of the yard and down into the pasture, or to be better to have more help, and I find it's actually better to have less help. Less distractions. They don't get on edge. They got a high prey awareness, the sheep, so more people get some riled up, and they do very unpredictable things. Sometimes it's easier to just have one person, one bucket, and make it happen. Anyways, I guess I gotta recover the ewe that the dog killed, sling it over the snowmobile here, and haul it down to the bottom of the farm. Speaking of snowmobiles, I went up to Worsley today, but on my way through to Worsley, I stopped in Fairview and looked at a couple of snowmobiles that are coming up at an auction up there. And I saw it was a Skidoo Scandic, which looks to be kind of like a utilitarian Skidoo. It's got like a gear shifter, first, second, and reverse. I've never seen one like that before. That's a me thing. It's not that I don't think they're rare or anything like that. But I'm just curious if anybody that's watching this has ever ran one of them. It's a 97 Skidoo Scandic, and it's a 500. So if you got one, or you ran one, or you know a guy that's got one, how is it? Is it reliable? Are they heavy duty, or are they a piece of hot garbage? Are they easy to work on? Are they hard to get parts on? I'd be interested to know, because I thought, well, you know what, for putzing around the yard here or whatever, floating around the field, pulling a little calf sled, something like that, maybe that, older snowmobile like that, it's got electric start, it's got reverse, seems like something that the wife could use to do some odds and ends of stuff around the farm, but maybe not. Let me know what you think, because this baby here does not have reverse, and doesn't have electric start. So it's got whatever you got here, essentially. And I should probably open both doors, go out into the field, whip around, and then come back through, and then go out that way. But that wind's blowing so hard today, and the snow's all drifted up in the backside of the barn. I'm not going to fight with that back door. I'm just going to pick her up by the rear end here, hobble my way around, and get it turned around.